So with the new DLC that just dropped earlier this month, I thought now was a great time to play Destiny 2 for the first time, and I'm sure many others think the same, so I think a review of the game in 2024 will be quite beneficial right now. In terms of the actual DLC, the final shape, I won't be focusing on, more so the main game itself, although it has gotten a lot of praise from fans, which is great. I mean, it has changed a lot since its first day, and they're still updating the game regularly. Also, I'm only basing it on the free-to-play game because it becomes even bigger with how many DLCs they put out. Now, eventually some of them do become free to everyone, but if you've played the free-to-play for a while, then I'm sure you'll be wanting more, as the expansions do offer a massive amount. This being to the story, your gear, the map, quest, and a lot more. All I'm going to say is if I am going to play this game for a while, then I can already see myself spending money on it in the future, which I'm fine with. I mean, that's how they get their money. But I do plan on playing this game for a while, so maybe I'll do an updated review in the future. Now, I describe Destiny 2 as a free-to-play, first-person online action looter shooter game with MMO aspects to it. It sounds like quite a lot. Almost similar to Warframe, which I played a few weeks ago, but bigger, with more of a campaign focus, I'd say, as in how many quests there actually are to follow and the story arcs. The game launched almost 7 years ago, in 2017, which I honestly didn't realise. I thought it was sooner than that. But what's great is that the community is still massive and still holds a strong player count nowadays, even more returning players with the final shape, of course. So I must say the gameplay of Destiny 2, which I can strongly say is the key aspect of the game, is super fun. I mean, not just a giant selection of weapons to use, but also the feeling of each one. The gunplay doesn't feel clunky or unresponsive. It's smooth with each gun, and switching or navigating through your gear mid-fight isn't an issue. Overall, the gameplay itself is so fast-paced and full of action, just as I expected it to be, and what makes it so fun to play, for sure. Now, I'll speak more on the type of characters you can play as, because this will all affect the way you play, mixed with your gear, of course, but also your movement as well. On the whole, the movement is exaggerated and ties in with the fast gunplay, so you'll be jumping up all over the place with boosts and various abilities to help with parkour, you know, traversing quickly, etc. So if this type of movement isn't your thing, then it probably isn't the game for you. A common complaint I heard from many players is that the game isn't very welcoming to new players, and especially free-to-play ones. There's navigation pop-ups on the screen, but in terms of the amount of content that's thrown in your face as soon as you start up, it can very easily become overwhelming and too complex for a new player. Now, I'd heard this before I started playing, so I knew what to expect, and to be honest, it still felt kinda confusing, but after getting to grips with it and doing some research on what's the best way to start, it does become easier. But the fact I had to do that and felt this way as soon as I started playing, I think it's clear that there could be an improvement in that area, because it's a great thing that there's a bunch of content to dive into without having to pay, but it also creates a struggle for the new players to find what quests you need to do first and where to start. Although, you know, some may not mind this and don't care about starting the game the correct way, or the main campaign, for example. I mean, I'm sure many just throw themselves in and just want to start taking down a bunch of targets, which is absolutely fine. But because they always focus on the newest expansion, the main campaign is sort of forgotten about for the free-to-play part of the game. Even though you may have just started, the game still thinks you're better off just buying the latest DLC, as that's the main focus of the game at the moment, and what has the most content to it. If not, then there's a lot of catching up to do, and the game doesn't make it clear where to start or go next. Luckily, there is a summary of the story and the previous DLCs of the game, and that's all in the directory tab, which I think is helpful for the reasons I just explained. It follows a series of short descriptions and cutscenes which do a good job at covering all the basis of the story for, once again, a new player, but not everything, and especially the older stuff for the original campaign. That's why I think it's best if you just try and follow it as best as you can, and I still recommend going over the directory tab, as it does help. Like I mentioned, it still navigates you well with important characters and aspects of the UI, which I appreciated, but the story is quite complex with a lot of lore to it, just because of the huge amount of ever-growing content, so don't let that push you away. But the main plot of the game, in the best way possible, is you playing as the protectors of the last safe city on Earth that has the last of humanity to it. We are the Guardians, who are light bearers, and that really is our main goal, to protect the last city. From who? Well, the opposite of us, the darkness, but also other threats branching off them, and that is it basically simplified, but the amount of lore that goes into the game now in 2024 is insane. Anyway, to set the premise of the gameplay side, you start off by being able to choose between 3 classes, which go by Titan, Hunter, and Warlock. Now, Titan is the tank option, so they're bigger and stronger. Hunter is the agile and fast-paced class, so they have stealthy elements and are very quick on their feet. Then Warlock uses the light the best, with their form of magic powers to use in combat, and this is all due to them studying the magic of the Traveller. And then the gameplay of course differs between them even more, with their huge variety in abilities to use, and the overall upgrading of your character system is also quite complex. But all of your abilities fall under the subclass section, which involves the main class ability. For Titans, you can use a deployable shield as defense, Hunters have a dodge roll to quickly move out the way and also reload your weapon automatically when done, and Warlock can place down a healing rift that heals anyone that's either you or an ally inside it. Or you can also use a empowering version which boosts your damage instead of healing when inside. Then you also have a defensive, jump, grenade and melee ability designated to each class. This may start to sound like a lot, but it's a great flexible system and makes your character even stronger, with way more stuff added to your gameplay, making it so fun. The main super ability and jump ability can be swapped out for a different one depending on your class, whereas melee, grenade and defense they can't. Then on top of this, you can add on additional fragments which act as small bonuses like plus X number of a category like strength or resilience. There's also aspects which are again small extras to add on to your gear, could be an ability or an item, and there's so many of these aspects to unlock, but only 2 can be equipped at a time, and those fragment slots are what they come with. Again, they can be slotted in and out with whichever you have unlocked. So yes, it sounds like an awful lot, but this is what adds on to that insane replayability and experimentation with your gameplay. Then there's also the gear and the weapons you gain by looting around the map and also completing other quests, which you guessed it, also has a crazy amount to choose from. And if you want all of them, then there's a lot of playtime and grinding involved. But the best thing is, it's just you playing through the game and always increasing your loadout in some way the more you play, and finding out what fits you best. I mean, I love it. These weapons could be legendary weapons, which are of course a lot stronger than the usual one you'd find, and these can be upgraded even more with mods, and each weapon comes with select perks that you can also add more to when they become available. But the weapons don't stop there, because there's also exotic weapons, the most powerful ones in the game and also quite rare, being unlocked through either exotic quests that are there to guarantee an exotic weapon or gear when completed, but also found from story missions and some special events. Now there's also a limit on these, with you only being allowed to use 1 exotic weapon and gear equipped at a time, which makes sense as they are quite overpowered. And the gunplay feels so good again with each weapon. I mean, they all vary in their areas like speed, range, sound, recoil, etc. Overall the handling is just great and so easy to use, with smooth shooting mechanics that never get old, especially with the amount of guns. The gear not only varies in their power and rarity, but also the appearance. I mean, you can create some really cool and incredibly unique characters in the game, with each player looking so different because of the giant system they have, with you being able to either alter the paint jobs of armor with unlockable shaders that also have their own rarity to them, not even just the armor but also the base customization you can do, and that's when you first choose your class. You can pick between a human, exo or an awoken, all down to appearance and doesn't affect the gameplay in any way, and then going into more detail with a wide array of hairstyles and colour, face markings, skin colour, head features if you choose exo, as you can create some great looking headwear and masks. As I mentioned, they do a pretty good job at giving you pop-ups on the screen for the UI navigation and where each part of your gameplay can be looked into. It's more so the story that's hard to follow, and once you start off you go through the main tutorial, you end up at the tower, which is the main hub for the game, and where you'll socialise with other online players, but also the main NPC characters that specialise in each area are there. So Ikora is who helps grow your light by offering abilities, fragments and aspects. And then Banshee 44 offers purchasable weapons to you. Zavala explains the leveling system and prestige, also offering available quests to you as well. And there's still a load others, but those are like the main ones you have to see. And I think that is where I end my review of Destiny 2 in 2024. And for a conclusion, I keep saying it, but the best part of the game is just the amount of stuff there is to do and experiment with. But yeah, in terms of the story side, if we're looking at everything, that is always going to be a struggle for the new player, as I mentioned. It's so big now and always growing growing with each expansion, so the earlier stuff isn't as focused on anymore. And now we just have all these extra branches of story, which is quite confusing, unfortunately. The gameplay is what makes it. I mean, constantly upgrading your character, which also means upgrading your gameplay to keep it fresh. And because it's quite grindy, it will be a long time before you run out of content, but it's also so fun to progress through it all. I'm going to be playing for a while, I think. Just don't think it's too much to handle as soon as you jump in, because I thought the same, but the fun part is just testing out different aspects and discovering as you go, I think. Then eventually you'll have a good understanding of each area of the gameplay. Then after a while, maybe you'll see yourself buying the new DLCs and playing through the main focus of the story at this time with the rest of the community. Now, if you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you like single player but also a few multiplayer games now, then that's what this channel is all about. I have many reviews on a variety of games, and there's a playlist of a series I've done in the description if you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member at either level 1 or 2. To gain access to various perks, then tap the join button below, but there's also a link in the description. Thank you all for the support and watching until the very end. And that was Destiny 2 in 2024, and bye bye.